Hello everyone and welcome back to a new video on the channel. Now in today's video, I am going to be explaining a bit more on these income shares, which are these ETPs, exchange traded products. So you have exchange traded funds, which is ETFs, and ETPs, which is exchange traded products, which in this case for income shares, these guys are essentially a fund manager. Okay, and they have a team that are trading options on Tesla stock, Amazon, Google, Meta, Nvidia, Apple, Coinbase, Microsoft, the Nasdaq 100, the S&P 500, and then gold. So, and what they're doing is they pay a yield. So let's say, for example, Tesla, well, they're trading options on Tesla stock, and if you purchase or invest in the Tesla ETP from income shares, you'll get a distribution yield as it currently stands at 98.83% per year. I know how that sounds. It sounds absolutely insane, but the way they're able to do this is through trading options. Now, options is a trading strategy. If you haven't heard too much or learned or you don't know too much about options, I'm not going to explain what options trading is in this video. One, because I'm not as clued up on it to explain it to you. I know the basics, but I don't really want to, sort of explain what something is without knowing it fully. And secondly, you can kind of read up on that information yourself if you're interested in learning more. This is not a paid promotion. I'm not sponsored by these guys in any way, shape, or form. This doesn't benefit me in any way. I'm just kind of giving the information to you to show you what I'm doing in my portfolio and how you could potentially add these to your portfolio to make some good income. So again, they're generating huge yields. It ranges from 159.5% distribution dividend yield down to 4.5% on Apple, and then down to 2.8% on gold, for example. But the way these distribution yields are calculated, this will change every month, because obviously each month they do a distribution, and that distribution obviously is very dependent on how much income they're able to generate on the underlying asset. So for here, for example, Coinbase, this, let's call this, I don't know, 120% just for easy math's sake. That means that they've made 10%, or they're averaging 10% a month on the money. So they're able to pay out 10% per month, obviously minus their the fee for the fund and all that good stuff, management fees and all that good stuff. But that would mean that they average that. But let's say next month they do, I don't know, 5%, then obviously that distribution yield will halve essentially. So it varies month on month, but these are just average over 12 months from what they've paid out so far. So, how you can potentially use these guys. So the good thing about this, and the thing that I'm investing the most in, I do have these. I have these in one pie on Trading 212, and I also have the S&P 500 ETP and the Nasdaq ETP. So the S&P 500 right now is currently paying an average of 41.38% distribution yield, and the Nasdaq 100 is currently paying a 65.14% average distribution yield. So if we click into one of these, for example, it will bring you up to the page and you can see all of the information. So if you scroll down here, you can see the tickers on different stock exchanges. So if you're in the UK, you'd buy this ticker. If you're in the US, you'd buy this one. Germany, you'd buy this one. Or I guess in Europe, you'd buy this one. So you can scroll down here and you can see sort of how much cash they hold and all that good stuff. You can see they have a good amount of cash on here, and you can see the distribution table. So you can see the distribution calendar. So for 2024, if we see how much they've paid out. Now, this is the thing with these guys. This is why it is high risk, which is why I'm not putting a huge amount of money into these right now, is because they've only been around since September, or they've been paying dividends since September. So this income shares branch is pretty new. And the reason I say branch is because this is owned, if you see up here in the top left, it says by leverage shares. Now, leverage shares have been around for years and years and years. And income shares is just kind of a branch of the leverage shares company. So it's completely separate, but it's part of that company. So if we go to distribution calendar, you can see how much they've paid out per share since September. And we have the first of the year. So we have January's dividend. The declaration date is the 31st of Jan, and the declaration date is to essentially they'll declare how much they're going to be paying per share. And you can essentially, if you buy up to the 3rd of February, so shares purchased before the 3rd of February will be sort of included in that distribution. And the payment date is the 12th of Feb. So you can see for January, you'll get paid on the 12th of Feb, for February, 12th of March, etc., etc. So I am currently not adding too much. If we go over to trading 212 here, you can see I only have 1,400 pounds in, and I have these set up. So this, ignore the titles. This is just for my personal tracking, but income shares ETFs. This is the NASDAQ and the S&P that I was telling you about. I have that 50-50 split. And then we're also investing this 200 cash today. And then I have the individual stocks. If you go to the holdings, you can see all of the individual ones that I've kind of got. I've just basically took all of these that they currently have, and I've just sort of purchased all of them at an equal sort of distribution, as you can see here. 15, 15, 15, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, and then 5 for gold and yield. So the bulk of the investment into these sort of ETPs is going to go into the ETFs, and we're going to have some in the individual shares as well, just because I want to have sort of a mixture. So you can see we have about £1,800 in them at the moment. Obviously, when the UK stock market opens, which is in around, I believe it's in either an hour or 2 hours. It's currently almost 7 a.m. here, 6:45 a.m. So when the London Stock Exchange opens, this cash, as you can see in here, this £200 plus this £100 will be invested, and yeah, we will start to see that. So let's go ahead and have a look and pull up a compound interest calculator. So I'm going to pull up a compound interest calculator here just so that we can use some easy maths sake here. So if we do initial investment, let's just call this 1,800, which is what I have in here. I'm going to put this in pounds just because I'm based in the UK. And we're going to say on average, I mean, this isn't going to be an exact average, but yeah, this is not going to be an exact average, but we're just going to say on average, these things across the board are going to pay, I don't know, let's say a 30% or 40% dividend yield, okay, annually, which I know is huge, but again, because they're trading options, and I'm assuming and that they have a very skilled team, and we do that until retirement, or let's say we do this for an extra 10 years, okay, starting with 1,800, which is what I have now, and we are continually adding an additional, I don't know, £500 a month, for example. I could do a lot more, but just for easy math's sake here, let's just give an example. Again, this is for the next 10 years interest rate. Okay, let's say for the next 10 years, let's be extremely conservative and say this goes down to 25% annually. Conservative in terms of what it's at now. Okay, and we hit calculate. Over the next 10 years, that's going to grow to £220,000, which is pretty significant. If you get down to sort of year 10, you can see the interest is insane. So yeah, pretty crazy. And of course, you can mess around with these numbers. Say you have more than £500 to deposit each month, and let's say you start with a bigger amount. But again, I wouldn't, this is not going to be the bulk of my portfolio. And shout out to Cashflow King YouTube channel. He's going pretty hard into these things. Now I would like to see, and the only thing putting me off at the moment, not putting me off, but the only thing that's kind of holding me back at the moment is how new they are to the space in terms of these new income share ETPs. Now, I know leverage shares have been around for a while, but I want to see some more sort of data on these income shares. So I'm not putting a heavy amount of money into these at the moment, but I will continue to add to this over the next few months as I start to see more data, more dividends coming through, that kind of thing. Now, again, if we take a look at one of these, let's take a look, for example, at the S&P 500 options. You can see since they started, it is down 5%, but you have to remember they've paid out a lot of dividends since then. So you would have recouped a lot of this. Now, actually, the bulk of that, I guess, loss, you could call it, has sort of been over the past sort of few months. So, and the reason I say this is because these aren't typically going to trade or have major swings too often. And the reason for that, and this is one thing you have to keep an eye on and be wary of if you're investing in these things, is that they do not prioritize growth. So for example, if you were to invest in the S&P 500, obviously you would be prioritizing growth on your portfolio. But for a case on something like the income shares, ETPs, you're not going to be focused, or these guys aren't focused on growing. So although you are essentially purchasing a backed asset of the S&P 500, you're not going to get that growth because these guys aren't focused on just buying the S&P 500. It's not tracking the S&P 500's growth. They're making money or trying to make money through options on the S&P 500. So they're not sort of focused on growth. Same sort of thing with the individual shares. If we take a look at something like, I don't know, Tesla, for example. Again, since the inception here, it's down 2%. Now, if you look at Tesla, it's obviously probably up a lot. I don't know exactly. I haven't looked at the chart in a while, but I assume they're probably up a lot. So, yeah, you're going to miss out on that growth when you're investing in these income shares, ETPs, because they're not focused and prioritized on growth. Although growth can come, and it probably will, alongside the portfolio as you drip feed back your dividends, you will see an increase there through the distributions, but you're not going to get growth, a massive amount of growth on the underlying asset, because again, that's not what they're focused on. So I do believe there is a place in a portfolio for dividends and cash flowing positions, but again, the bulk of my portfolio, I'm only 23, so the bulk of my portfolio will go to income generating assets, such as not income growing, growth growing assets on the stock market, such as buying the S&P 500, buying the all world fund, that kind of thing. But I do want to build a significant income portion of the portfolio as well, so that is going to be part of this. Now, if you want to see why I'm holding 14 grand of cash in my ISA here, and why I've pulled out £50,000 of my ISA over the past year, because I'm able to add an extra 50 grand into the ISA. This is a flexible ISA, so I can pull it out and then put it back into the same tax year. Go and check out one of my previous videos on why I did that and an update. But that's going to be it for the video. One more thing to show you is on Twitter. Shameless plug, I do have a Twitter account at onlinebread_. I will put a link in the description. But these guys did put a tweet out 3 days ago saying that they now have $10 million under asset management on income shares, which is a pretty big milestone. So that is pretty big, looking like some good growth. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe if you want to, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.